Every day we take score. Often when we're lying awake at night just staring at the ceiling, unconsciously or consciously, there's a moment in every busy professional's life at the end of every day when you decide whether or not what you did that day was enough. Every day we're playing a game and we're taking score, but it is not a fun game because we don't actually know the rules. What if you could change that? What if instead you choose your own rules and you make the game not just winnable, but fun? In today's episode, we're going to talk about how you could start taking score on your terms. And I'm going to share with you the real metrics of productivity so that you can make your own rules. And then when you take score at the end of every day, it's quantifiable. Let's transform your days into a fun game. Let's decide on the rules of the game called Time Freedom, and let's win big at it. Welcome to Weekly Momentum, the podcast that helps you focus better in your work hours so that you can finish before 5 and free up your weekends. Now, if you want to start your week with clarity and confidence and a whole lot less chaos, you're in the right place. I'm the Get It Done Diva, and I'm here to help busy professionals just like you continue to do great work, but without playing catch up every weekend, only to feel behind again by Tuesday. You know, if you feel like you have more things on your to-do list than seem to fit into the time that you have, this show is your roadmap to change. And today, we are exploring taking score. And by the end of this episode, you're going to discover how to make up your own rules and score your week using your weekly top 10 and the 6 elements of productivity and satisfaction. You're going to learn how to use metrics to clearly see the impact, celebrate your progress, and design a week that brings you genuine satisfaction and time freedom. You're going to learn to make the game of time freedom truly winnable. All right, let's go back to that moment when you take score each day. That moment when you're just staring at the ceiling or when you're deciding whether or not you're going to stay late again at the office. How do you measure if you've done enough? Do you have a list and when you're done with everything on it, that's enough? If that's the case, how often do you actually complete everything on the list? For most busy professionals, those days are actually few and far between. Now, if you have a 9 to 5 job where someone else is in charge of your schedule, it might be easier to know when to call it a day. The clock's going to dictate that. But for busy professionals in charge of our own calendar, a never-ending to-do list can leave us working late and sacrificing our weekends trying to get ahead. A to-do list is one way to take score, but most people keep adding to that list throughout the day. So winning the to-do list game is really difficult because it's impossible to hit a moving target. Another way we tend to take score is to base winning on whether or not we finished a really big project or hit a milestone. But that might take weeks or months. And so in between, there's no clear weekly or daily target for us to hit. We can't win the finish the project game very often. Another way that we might measure if we're winning is how we feel at the end of the week. Now, even if we accomplished a lot at the beginning of the week, if on Thursday or Friday we make a mistake, we hit a wall with a project or someone complains to us, then most likely we're going to decide we lost the game that week. We need a more reliable way to measure our productivity and take score, one that entails more than trying to complete a never-ending list of big projects or that hinges on how we feel in a given moment. What we need are metrics. In the business world, key performance indicators, or KPIs, they're quantifiable metrics that measure if a company is hitting its objectives. They provide a clear picture of whether a business is on track to achieve its targeted goals. They're like the dashboard in your car, giving constant feedback on your speed, direction, and even how far you are from your destination. But metrics aren't just for big corporations or fancy spreadsheets. They're vital signposts that you can use personally and professionally too. Think about that smartwatch on your wrist. It's consistently counting your daily steps, measuring your heart rate, and even measuring your sleep quality. These aren't just random numbers, they're metrics. They're metrics for your health and fitness goals. When you see that step count metric go up or see a consistent number of weekly workout sessions, you're getting immediate, tangible feedback on whether you're moving towards a healthier lifestyle. This simple act of measurement transforms what you want into a metric. Perhaps you've made a mental note of how many books you've read in your book club, or consciously set aside time for a creative hobby that you really enjoy. Those can be metrics. Even noticing how many emails are in your inbox or how many minutes you meditated are metrics. These measurements help you understand how you're doing and if you're moving towards what you want more or less of in your life and work. They become the rules to play by and can help you take score much more accurately. Health and fitness metrics might include the number of weekly workout sessions, your daily step count, or distance that you ran or walked, consistency in maintaining a healthy diet, or the number of hours or quality of sleep per night. Financial metrics might be monthly savings, reduction in expenses, credit score improvement, or investment portfolio growth. Professional development metrics might be the number of professional training or courses you completed, or maybe the quarterly performance reviews and feedback. Metrics in your life might include the amount of time you spent with friends and family, the number of meaningful conversations, or how often you wrote in your gratitude journal. Tracking metrics makes progress visible. And metrics can gamify consistent action, making the days you spend moving towards your goals much more fun and engaging. And they help you feel a sense of accomplishment each week. When you understand which metrics you want to track, you can use them to answer the question, have I done enough? At the end of the day, because you have clear rules and you know what they are. Metrics can become your personal GPS. They let you know if you're moving in the right direction or going off path. They allow you to shift from the unwinnable game of asking, did I do enough? To measuring and asking, how much did I do? Some days the answer is going to be yes, and some days no. But when you're using metrics, you can then use that data to see where you might need to master new skills, delegate tasks, or underpromise more so that you can overdeliver. And then you can win the weekly game more often. Vision plus passion plus consistent action equals momentum. And consistent action is often where a lot of people struggle. Sticking with things through that messy middle to the breakthrough that's on the other side can often feel like a struggle. But metrics can help you in becoming consistent. A couple of years ago, I decided to play the game of 100 days of hot yoga. Now, I don't have great balance. I am not at all what you would describe as flexible. But for some reason, I had a bee in my bonnet, and I wanted to play the game of 100 days of hot yoga just with myself. Showing up and going through the 26 postures and 2 breathing exercises of hot yoga, it felt like I was moving through concrete. But you know what? Even concrete can be penetrated by something as gentle and beautiful as a flower, but only if that flower is consistent. Now, in yoga class, during the standing series, there's a pose that's called standing head to knee. And every day as we begin to get into that pose, the instructor would say the same words to the class. Just pick up your foot. Don't think, just pick up your foot. And so that's what I did, day after day. Hot yoga class number 1 was hell. Class number 72, back aching. And number 82, was my best class ever. I know now from experience that metrics help me stay more consistent. And I also clearly see that no matter how consistent I am with anything, including hot yoga, that my results will vary from day to day and week to week. And that's part of the process. That allows me to be more forgiving with myself. Just when I would think I was not making any progress in hot yoga, out of nowhere, a breakthrough would show up. I'd find myself just lifting my leg a little higher. I could balance just a bit longer, or I could open my chest up even deeper. When I didn't feel like going to class, I just remind myself of the 100-day metric in the game I was playing. And then it was a little easier to just pick up my foot and get in the car. When I'm writing a new book and I'm not in the mood to write, I just remind myself I'm playing the write a best-selling book game, and the metric I'm tracking is right for an hour each day. I start typing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not pushing or coercing myself to take action that's not aligned, but not every day is going to feel easy. That's normal. But how do you still stay consistent with metrics? Gold medal athletes have metrics in their life that are simply non negotiable. It might be the metrics of swimming 30 laps daily or not eating 2 hours before they swim because it slows them down. Like dominoes, just one non negotiable metric can trigger dozens of actions almost effortlessly. And when I started doing hot yoga, every day before I knew it, laundry was being done daily instead of just when I ran out of clothes. I was showering and shaving my legs daily. I drank extra water so that I had energy and I was hydrated during the class. And I ate more regularly and refueled with foods that gave me energy but didn't sit on my stomach. Found that out the hard way. I became a scientist of what effects sleep, food, activities during the day all had on my performance each day in hot yoga. I was tuning into what made me better and motivated to make adjustments based on my metrics. One day, as I got in the car to go to hot yoga, I realized that going to hot yoga every day had become a non negotiable, a habit for me. I hadn't pushed myself to do it, it just was. It's funny, I've got no desire to be an athlete, and I've never shown any interest in sports or sporting competition in my life before. And here I was acting like an athlete. Instead of using willpower, what I'd unconsciously done by playing the game of 100 days of hot yoga was upgrade my operating system using metrics to measure my progress. Once we consciously decide on metrics, we naturally raise our standards when we consistently make a commitment to them. Metrics are how you build better habits and upgrade your behavior. Consistency then gives us an edge so that we can break through old behaviors and conquer new challenges to win the equivalent of what that gold medal is to us, or the game that we've created, like 100 days of hot yoga. Being consistent with anything, it makes us feel proud, accomplished, invigorated, and happy. And yet consistency can also feel boring, pointless, painful, and even demoralizing at times. If you want to stay consistent through these ups and downs, then we need to find fun ways to measure and to track our progress. Metrics gamify consistent action and make it much more fun. And even on those days when it feels difficult or even painful to show up and keep doing what we're doing, metrics help us stay in the race and celebrate our consistent action, which in turn allows us to finish before 5 and enjoy our weekends because we can measure our productivity even when we're not seeing the results that we want yet. And we can say, yes, I've done enough. Metrics can become the habits or the rhythm that we move to. They can be the pulse that keeps our actions consistent and aligns us with our goals, our dreams, and our one thing. They help us measure progress, fine-tune our strategies, and stay on track. Now, while metrics are incredibly powerful for measuring progress, there is a point where we can actually go too far. If I find myself tracking too many things or worse, tracking things that I just generally don't care about, it can quickly make me feel like I've got no freedom. And that leads me to an urge to rebel or give up on a metric or two. When we give up, we're giving up a lot more than just that one metric, though. There's actually a ripple effect. Usually the first thing that happens is my itty-bitty shitty committee in my head starts talking smack, reinforcing those old lies or illusions of being a procrastinator or never finishing things. Once that self-trust is eroded, it makes it harder to honor my word with myself or with the agreements that I make in the future. This is how busyness addiction gets its claws into us. And it's a tough road to build self-trust back up after that's happened. The key is to start small and simple. I can pick a few easy, simple metrics, ridiculously small things, begin rebuilding that emotional bank account. If it happens, you can start to think of yourself like a friend who always flakes on plans. It may take a while, but if they start consistently showing up, gradually you'll shift how you see them and you'll rebuild the trust again. In my latest book, Daily Momentum, I break down productivity into 6 key areas. I call them the 6 areas of satisfaction, and you can use them to come up with your own metrics and track your progress each week. The 6 areas of satisfaction that I'm going to share with you right now, they're not themselves metrics, but rather they're the essential ingredients that make up productivity in a satisfying way. To start, I suggest you just notice what you're doing and maybe not doing in each of the 6 areas. You can use the weekly rewind to help you get curious and start to understand the 6 areas better too. Then you can begin to build at least 1 or 2 metrics to measure each of them. This way, you can make sure that you're measuring what really matters in the way that matters to you, rather than falling into the trap of tracking too many things or things that you don't really care about. When you combine that with the metrics that you gather from your weekly scorecard, which I'm going to share with you in step 1 in a minute, it's much easier to confidently answer the question, have I done enough? And also the question, did I do what I said this week? So let's dive into them together. Accomplishment. That's that just amazing feeling of being productive, proud, or having challenged yourself. It's about finishing stuff, usually small stuff, loose ends, and often what Brian Tracy calls big frogs. Accomplishment fuels your momentum, and it reduces that horrible feeling of feeling behind. For example, maybe it's finally tackling that long overdue client report, or perhaps it's something as simple as getting your nails done, running payroll, making your bed this morning, or prepping dinner ingredients ahead of time. It's recognizing those things that you're getting done. As humans, we thrive when we feel this daily and weekly, not just now and again. The second area is space. Space is when we don't feel rushed and pushed into doing things. It's a sense of spaciousness, like there's more than enough time, but also physical space for us to be creative and enjoy what we're doing in the moment. It's having breathing room, not feeling maxed out or like we're drowning or treading water. Spaciousness is when we build in 15 minutes of buffer time between appointments, or the luxury of a slow shower instead of rushing through it. It creates a winning environment where you're not constantly reacting to external pressures. There are tangible metrics that we can set up in this area, and when we hit them, we can create time freedom. The next area is progress. This is the feeling of moving forward towards bigger goals or projects. It's seeing forward motion and making decisions rather than spinning your wheels in busyness. It's about taking the time to know how your efforts today are impacting your future and what small steps you can take to move forward, like we talked about in last week's episode. The next area is focus. This happens when we're able to devote time to our projects and goals without being distracted, overwhelmed, or procrastinating. It's when we're in the zone of greatness that I talked about last week. Even 20 minutes of focused, uninterrupted work can shift everything. And that's a metric, by the way. When you're focused, you might be setting up power hours for deep work, silencing notifications, or ask for privacy during a client call to avoid distractions. Next is freedom. Freedom feels like having a choice to focus on whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. It's feeling like you could do whatever you want today, even when you're on someone else's clock. It's about feeling agency and ownership, being the hero of your life, not the victim. It might mean how you do things, not just what you actually do. Perhaps it's deliberately choosing to walk to an appointment instead of driving there, or setting a timer for a meeting to release the responsibility of watching the clock. Finally, fun. Fun is when we measure activities that make us feel happy, connect us to others, and we feel like we're learning and growing. We're wired to learn. When we don't feel this way, we feel lost. Fun's about enjoying the journey and remembering work doesn't have to feel heavy. And we absolutely don't have to sacrifice joy right now for joy later. What's fun for you? I had a really hard time with this after I quit drinking. I didn't know what fun was anymore without having a drink in my hand. And I think I'm still figuring it out. But each week, getting curious about how to measure my satisfaction in the area of fun really helps me. It's easy to forget or delay fun if we don't consciously include it in how we measure our week. Life is meant to be fun. What metrics will you use to measure your productivity in these 6 areas? Maybe make a list. You don't have to use every metric that you come up with, but it's a fun exercise to help you truly understand each of the 6 elements of productivity: accomplishment, progress, space, focus, freedom, and fun. Now, let's move into the weekly momentum flow for this week, where I'm going to share with you some more ways to create metrics and take score so that you can win the week. Just in case you're new to weekly momentum, I want to take a moment to just give you a quick overview of what to expect and how to get the most out of this process each week. Weekly momentum, it's your reset moment, your chance to pause and set the tone for the week ahead. And this simple 4-step weekly flow is going to give you the breathing room to reduce your stress and create a calmer, more intentional week. It's so much more than planning. It's a moment to look inward and connect with yourself, to celebrate and learn from the last week, and then step powerfully into the new one. Every week's a new opportunity to upgrade, create change, and shift from busyness, burnout, and overwhelm to time freedom, finishing before 5, and doing great work. Each time you repeat the weekly momentum flow, you're solidifying a habit that creates structure, clarity, and momentum for weeks ahead. If you're like most busy professionals, you're frustrated. What you're doing right now isn't working. It can feel like a time famine, not enough hours to give the 150% you know that you're capable of. And you catch yourself thinking, if I just had more time. Weekly momentum gives you that breathing room you need to make that shift. Now, every episode of Weekly Momentum follows the same format. It's a 4-step flow that I've been sharing with my members and my clients to help them focus better and get more done every week for almost 20 years. Step 1, rewind. You celebrate your wins, you know what worked, what didn't, and why, and you carve new neural pathways with do-overs. Step 2, realign. You look at the big picture, reconnect to what you want, remind yourself of your annual and your 90-day goals so that you can lead with your priorities, not pressure from other people. Step 3, plan. This is the step where you formally say what you want. Instead of adding to a never-ending to-do list or keeping everything in your head, you make clear agreements with yourself by setting a weekly goal and creating a weekly top 10. Step 4, plug in. Get your head in the game. Update your calendar so it reflects what matters most this week. That way you can honor your agreements that you made in Step 3 and do what you say more often. You can also learn more about the tools that I share on my Get It Done Diva YouTube channel. Listening to this podcast each week is going to help you to build your own weekly momentum habit. But writing really locks it in. When you write down things, you're 40% more likely to follow through. So if you want 40% more results, grab your favorite journal, notebook, or a Google Doc and write as you listen. And if you're already using one of my Momentum 90-day planners, you're all set. The full weekly momentum flow is inside. If you want to purchase a planner, head over to getitdonediva.com and click on the Books and Planners tab. One last thing before we get started. If you don't have a momentum planner, you can just grab the free weekly planning pages for busy professionals. They're on my website. You just head over to getitdonediva.com and you'll find the link to them on the homepage. So, let's get started with step 1 of this week's weekly momentum flow. Step 1, rewind. That's once again where we celebrate wins, know what worked, what didn't, and why, and we start to carve those new neural pathways with do-overs. This step speeds up your growth cycle so that you upgrade your operating system every week. And this helps you honor your agreements and stay more consistent, which we'll be talking about in a minute, from week to week. Now, in the weekly planning pages, you're going to find 7 questions and a couple of prompts to help you to rewind the week. But you can also check in with the momentum code. We talked about that in episode 1. Did you know what you wanted last week? Did you say it clearly? Did you do what you said last week? As you rewind the past 7 days, I want you to also look back at your week, perhaps even your weekly top 10 list from last week, and really notice the presence or the absence of those 6 essential elements of productivity and satisfaction that we just talked about. Accomplishment. What specific things did you finish last week, big or small, that gave you that feeling of being productive or proud? Make a mental list or a written list with your own real examples of your own accomplishments. Area of space. Where did you feel like you had breathing room or a sense of not being rushed last week? Think about those moments when you felt a sense of spaciousness, like there was enough time to be creative or simply enjoy what you were doing. Notice those moments of ease. When you do, you're identifying in black and white what time freedom looks like for you. It's different for everyone. Progress. How did your actions last week move you forward towards your bigger annual or 90-day goals? Focus. When were you able to devote uninterrupted time to your projects and goals, operating in that zone of greatness? Did you have any power hours or specific times where distractions were minimized last week? Identify the periods of deep concentration you had and how you achieved them so you can do it again. Freedom. In what moments last week did you feel a sense of choice, agency, or ownership over your time and how you showed up? This might be about how you did something, even if you were on someone else's clock. Maybe something as simple as standing rather than sitting at your desk. Finally, fun. Last week, what brought you joy, connection, learning, or made you have a sense of well-being? What felt satisfying or made you laugh? Some people, it's dancing to a favorite song or listening to an audiobook. Really start to understand for yourself what is fun for you, not what you think it should be. Now let's look specifically at your weekly top 10 from last week. Your weekly top 10 is just a short list of to-dos that you made a commitment to doing at the beginning of last week. We do this every week in the weekly flow. If you didn't formally create one, then just use last week's to-do list or make a list right now based on what you wanted to get done last week. For each of those 10 items, I want you to score yourself using this simple system I use with the members every week. You get 1 point if you completed the item. You get half a point if you started it. You just took the first step. You opened the document. That's it. You still get a half point. No points if you did absolutely nothing at all on the item. And for those times when you went truly above and beyond, maybe not only completed the item, but you streamlined the whole process or delivered something exceptional, give yourself 2 points. Be honest with yourself. Reserve those bonus points for when you truly deserve them. Once you've scored all the items, then add up your score. When we score the week this way, it reminds us that we're designing the game. We're deciding how and what to take score of. No one else is. We can make it winnable or not. We can come up with the weekly top 10 and we can learn so much when we look at the metrics from the week before with this really simple scoring system. This also helps you see your effort and progress in a little bit more of a concrete way. Now, let's use the do-over concept to reevaluate your score so that you can begin to make those new neural pathways. If you got a 0 or a half point for something, I want you to ask yourself, if you could have a do-over, what would you do differently to achieve a higher score? And you've got to be super specific and clear. Your weekly rewind isn't about judgment or regret. It's about ways to increase your learning and upgrade your operating system for the week ahead, building, once again, those new neural pathways in your brain. Step 2, that's where we want to take a look at the bigger picture and realign, reconnect to what you want, and remind yourself of your annual and your 90-day goals so that this week's priorities can be in line with them. Take a moment to think about your vision, your passion, and your bigger goals and projects. Goals, they're how you say what you want. And your 90-day plan is just a roadmap with clear expectations that you can adjust as you go. This week, as we reconnect with your bigger 90-day goals or annual goals, I want you to quantify them by identifying what percentage of complete each one is. That way you can take score of how you're doing and use metrics in a more concrete way. So for each of your goals that you have on your plan, I want you to give yourself a percentage. How close are you to 100%? This exercise gives you more of a concrete measure rather than just a vague feeling of how you're doing. And it's really helpful because it transforms the goals you have into metrics, allows you to see where you stand and celebrate how much progress you've made, not just crossing the finish line. And that helps you stay in the race and celebrate consistent action, even when you're not seeing the results that you want yet. Now, once you have your percentages, let's make this actionable. For each goal that isn't at 100% yet, I want you to ask yourself, what would it take to get 100%? So if you're at 50% on a goal, what would you need to do to get to 60%? This forces you to define your next action step. Remember those ridiculously small steps that you can take to move you forward. I introduced those last week. All right, step 3, plan. This is where you formally say what you want. Instead of just adding to a never ending list or keeping all of these ideas in your head, you're going to make clear agreements with yourself by setting a weekly goal and prioritizing and creating a weekly top 10. Now, remember, that is a weekly scoring system. We looked at it in step 1, but now we're creating the list instead of scoring it. So let's make sure we're designing a winnable game for ourselves this week. Your weekly goal or one thing is the most important focus for the week. You're still going to set one of those. And then you have your weekly top 10. And that serves two purposes. It helps you move towards and achieve the goal that you've set. And it also gives you a place for other important things that need to be done this week. As you're creating your weekly top 10 for this week, I really want you to actively check in with yourself to make sure you're designing that winnable game. This means that you consciously select each item for the weekly top 10. Make them feel less like a wish list or a never-ending to-do list and more like an agreement, a clear commitment you're making. And for each of the 10 items on this list, I want you to ask yourself, how would I know this is complete? Define really clear outcomes, rules of the game. You want to be very specific. Instead of exercise, it might be complete 2 yoga classes. You want to know what the finish line is so that you can take score and measure your progress at the end of the week. Next, I want you to ask yourself, am I committed to scoring a 1 or even a 2 on this item? By pre-committing to your score, you're setting yourself up for success and holding yourself a little bit more accountable and designing the game. This more strategic approach to weekly planning is going to help you to make clear agreements with yourself, not just about what you'll do, but how those actions are going to contribute to a satisfying week. By doing this, your weekly plan becomes a roadmap, allowing you to feel great and win the week. It's time for the final step. This step in the flow is where you get your head in the game and update your calendar so it reflects what really matters most this week. Commitments and the agreements that you made in your weekly top 10 and your weekly goal. And you can set it up before you get into the week so that this week you can do what you say more often. And if you want to win your week, block off time dedicated to your weekly goal and your weekly top 10. Don't forget, you can grab the weekly planning pages for busy professionals for free to help you with your weekly planning flow. And when you do, you're also going to get short step-by-step videos you can follow along with to plan your week with me. In this week's episode, you learned how to score your week and measure your productivity with the 6 elements of productivity and satisfaction: progress, focus, space, accomplishment, freedom, and fun. So that when you take score, you're playing a winnable game. By now, you probably realize I'm a huge fan of weekly and daily strategic planning. However, you might not realize that I do annual planning as well. Way back when I started the Women's Business Momentum Center back 20 years ago, I started doing an annual retreat called Ignite, and I've been doing it ever since. It's an amazing gathering of women in a luxury environment so that you can put together and take ownership of your goals. Otherwise, they're just wish lists or nice ideas, and then we wonder why we don't take action on them. So if you'd like to join me at the Ignite retreat, I have just a couple of spots left. You can head over to the website at getitdonediva.com, click on the Ignite retreat. It is a 4-day magical adventure here in my hometown of Palm Springs. You'll arrive on the Friday and we'll have a lovely mixer so that you can step into the magic of the retreat. And then there's 2 days of mastermind sessions. I have mystery adventures we go on. I love surprising the ladies. And then we have amazing food. You're going to get luxury accommodation, included a private room with your reservation. And then on the last day, the Monday, I'm going to give you a spa day. so that you can transition into your life again. The retreat's in January. There's only a couple of spots left. So if you want to join me to really make an impact and own your year, sign up now. And just to make sure that you are fully ready for the retreat, I'm actually offering 2 complimentary coaching sessions with me. You'll get them as soon as you sign up so that I can help you understand the momentum system, answer any questions you have, set yourself up so that you can confidently walk into the room with the ladies in January at the retreat. So if you want to grab one of those last spots, make sure that you sign up now. If you have any questions, just reach out. Myself or one of the team will get right back to you. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Weekly Momentum. This podcast is for busy professionals who do great work and still want to end their workday before 5 without the guilt trip. So if you want to go a weekend without checking your email, you want to get client work done ahead of all the deadlines, if you want to keep your evenings free for your family, rest, or doing absolutely nothing, you want to spend more time working on your business, not just in it, and you want to plan next week before you're in it, remember greatness? It's a habit, not a hustle. Just take it one week at a time and join me next week for Weekly Momentum.